All right, Jen.
Looks like we've got, okay, I can see now. Yes, we've got people joining. If you are here to attend our webinar on home care hiring benchmarks, you're in the right place. We're just giving everybody a couple minutes to log in, get their coffee, their water, etc. But it's already a couple minutes after the hour, so I think I'll just jump in. And Connor, we're recording this. Awesome, amazing. So if we haven't met before, hi, I'm Jen. I'm one of the co-founders of Augusta, and super excited to share this webinar with you today with Homecare Pro, our awesome partner. Both of us are software platform companies who focus on very home care specific things related to recruiting, onboarding, and compliance. On Augusta's side of things, really attracting, screening, and interviewing the top applicants. And then on Homecare Pro side of things, onboarding and maintaining HR compliance on an ongoing basis. So the goal of the webinar today really is to start to share the data that we have, talk a little bit about our partnership and how our platforms work, and give you guys a really good sense of what some of the benchmarks are for these areas of your business. Our software are pretty unique, and so we are collecting different data than is out there, typically speaking. And so we're super excited to share that and give you some ideas of where other people are in the industry and what top agencies are doing. So with that, I'll just give a quick little intro on myself, and then I'll turn it over to Connor to have him introduce himself. So like I said, I'm Jen, one of the co-founders of Augusta. I got my start in this industry as a non-medical caregiver. That was back in 2009, if you can believe that. Feels like a lifetime ago. But it was a very, very meaningful experience for me. I did that for a couple of years, and then ended up finding a company that was doing online training for caregivers, and that kind of set my whole career in motion. So that way I was able to stay in the industry and do other important work. And just like so many caregivers out there, I really wanted to figure out how do I, maintain this amazing emotional outcome that you get from being a caregiver, but also make a career out of it. So that's what I was able to do. And I guess what it's led me to now is working on Augusta, which is what me and our team saw as basically the biggest problem in the industry in terms of caregiver recruiting. So what our software actually does is I'm going to tell you just a little bit about it before we go into all the data that we want to share and the benchmarks that we want to share. And it's because the benchmarks that we're going to share are actually collected through our software platform. So I want to make sure you know how, at least a little bit about how it works, so that way you have confidence in the data that we're sharing, basically. So what our software does is it helps home care agencies specifically. We don't work with any other type of business. It helps them attract, interview, and build real human connections with the top caregiver applicants. We thought we're being very clever. We call it the #1 applicant matching platform. It's a play on words on applicant tracking, except for the fact that we are totally specific to helping identify caregivers that actually match with your clients. So matching is really different from general hiring. And what it does is it allows you to grow your business, basically. And first and foremost, we know that you can't just be fast today. That's just not enough. Basically, you need to be also right with your hiring and match the right people to the right cases. So that is what we're focused on. As a part of the way the software works, we are automatically collecting over 20 data points on almost all the applicants who are processed by our software. So we get a ton of information on who applicants are. And then there's a bunch of automation in our system, which basically allows our customers to auto schedule the right type of interview. So our software platform does video interviews, it does in-person interviews, it does phone interviews, and all of it is automated. So basically we're tracking every single applicant that comes through the software, and then we're also tracking how they were interviewed and how long it took. So that's how we're able to share the data that we have today. So that's about me and Augusta. Let me turn it over to Connor.
Thanks, Jen. Yeah, this is really exciting. So we, both of our companies, we spend most of our time serving hundreds of locations around North America. Very rarely do we get a chance to step back and take a look at the best practices, the benchmarks that we're seeing, and actually share those with a wider audience. So it's really exciting, and thank you all for being here today. This is really exciting for both of us. So my name's Connor. I'm the founder CEO of Homecare Pro. Got my start here when a good friend of mine running a home care agency described the challenges that he was having keeping up with the caregivers he wanted to bring on board and maintaining their compliance, and just the overwhelming amount of work that was causing him and his staff. Thinking that there had to be a better way, that it was detracting from the quality of relationships that he could build with caregivers and clients, and thinking that this actually could be a really good opportunity for software to actually help out, just because compliance is very transactional. You just need to collect information and documents from people and keep it up to date. And so we started building this together, and it's been a really great journey over the last 3 years, now serving over 500 locations, and really just helping managers save time, spend more time doing the things that really matter and providing care. So that's our company. Excited to be here. Augusta's been a really great partner for us. We only get involved after the decision to hire has been made. We don't do anything in recruiting and hiring, and it's great to partner with companies that do a really good job of bringing good candidates in the door. So it's exciting to put this on together.
Awesome. So hopefully you already feel very welcome, and you've been framed on what we're going to talk about today. But here's the specifics of what's on the agenda. So we've got benchmarking data, basically industry performance versus what top performers are doing, and some data around that. And we've got basically, essentially for each of us, why our specializations matter as much as they do related to these outcomes that you're seeing essentially from our benchmarking data. Then we're going to talk about our partnership and what our integration means and what it helps our customers do. And then we've got a joint case study that we want to share with that's a mutual customer. And of course, Q&A. So feel free to ask questions. I think in this platform that we're on now, the Google Meet, you can raise your hand. So if an urgent question comes up, please don't hesitate to raise your hand, and we'll call on you, and then you'll unmute and ask your question. So keep that in mind as we go through. All right, so I'm going to start with our benchmarking data related to the format that an interview happens in, basically. So as I said, our software, it allows our customers to schedule and complete video interviews, in-person interviews, and phone interviews. So it automatically does all of that for our customers. What we're seeing is that more caregivers are hired when their first scheduled interview is an in-person interview versus a phone or video interview. This is probably surprising to a lot of people out there. But in fact, it's 65%-ish of hires that are made when their first interview is an in-person interview. But there's a caveat to this. Top agencies will call the best applicants for them first. They do not wait for any scheduled appointment time at all. It's just that it's really tough. Being a recruiter and HR person in this industry is tough. You get a ton of applicants, and it's really hard to figure out which ones are the ones that you want to contact first. So that's kind of underlying this whole slide and data that I'm sharing, is that to be able to make those calls as a recruiter, you really need to know who to contact and for what type of interview if you want to be the first. Because everybody's placing calls to the applicants, but it's like, are you actually contacting the applicant who's the best for your hiring needs right now first. And that's a little bit harder to do. Obviously, Augusta makes that really easy to do, but there's certainly other ways that I'm sure folks could make it happen if they wanted to. So any questions? Connor, can I clarify anything here?
No, I think that was very clear.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So on my next data point, okay, so my next benchmarking data point is on time to interview. You are over 50% more likely to hire a candidate when they are interviewed within 4 days of applying. The best agencies out there, top agencies who are doing the highest volume of hiring, are oftentimes doing it in less than 2.5 days. I see people regularly in our platform, because we're tracking this on a ongoing basis. I see top agencies who are interviewing, like their first formal interviewing happening within 1 day of the applicant's application, basically. So things are moving really fast out there. And again, to be able to hire, make sure that you are interviewing everybody within 4 days, you do need to know who to prioritize. Because what will jam up your whole hiring funnel here is if you basically get the wrong applicants on the schedule and they're taking up time from the applicants that were actually good and should have been a higher priority. So the prioritization of applicants can't be understated, because it affects your time to interview significantly. Any questions?
Cool. Move us along. Here we go.
All right, awesome. So long story short on that time to interview, if you don't have a way to make sure that your best applicants are getting interviewed that quickly, then it's absolutely worth it to invest in that. Next up, geo-qualifying applicants. So 74% of applicants live less than 20 miles from your service area. And focusing your time and energy on applicants within that 20-mile area of 20 miles of each of your service areas will result in a much better conversion rate. And again, it's to the extent where if you're spending time on applicants who live more than 20 miles away from your service area, you will make a few hires, but they are much more likely to waste your time. So having a way to geo-qualify applicants is super important. I'm going to tell you just a little bit about how it's done in our software platform, so that way you can make a little bit more sense of this data. In our software platform, you basically, our customer tells us their address, their office addresses, and any other points on the map that are considered qualified zones for the applicant to be living in. And each of those points has a graded mileage associated with it. So it's a concentric green area, and hypothetically your office address, everybody within 10 miles of the office address is a green candidate, and then within 20 miles is a yellow candidate. So that location is graded, and it can be as many points on the map as you need it to be in our software platform. So that's how we're defining service area in this data. Is it's not just your office, it's in proximity to where you have clients and your office. And basically what we can tell you is that pretty much all applicants, not all, right? So it's like 25% of applicants who live more than 20 miles away from any of your important points on the map are likely wasting a lot of your team's time. And you're probably much better off spending more time with the applicants who live closer to those points that you're targeting, rather than spending time on people for outlying cases. And okay, I'm taking a little bit long on this data point here, but like when you think about this in relation to bigger picture, how your business is structured, it has a pretty big impact. Like one of the most common mistakes that I see brand new agencies make is that they have a giant service area and not enough resources to cover the whole service area. And so this is basically going along with that idea of really staying focused on where you can hire and where you can get business, and building relationships with like referral partners in like concentrated areas. And the same idea with hiring, because it's just not worth your time and energy basically to like take that one-off case that's it far away and then go trying to move your whole hiring organization in that direction. Basically, it overall doesn't get you great results. Basically, so hopefully that wasn't too much information, but I think it's important because it's super related to how you go out and get business. It's like related to how you go out and find where your hires are going to be. So.
No, it makes a ton of sense. It's intuitive.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. So let me turn it over to you, Connor.
Yeah, thank you. So on the onboarding side, this is really only after the decision to hire a caregiver has been made. So we're not talking about interviewing, vetting, posting, or anything on that. These are candidates that we want to bring on board, and we're trying to bring them to hire and get them into the systems that need to be added to, collect all of the information that needs to be collected as quickly as possible and as efficiently as possible. And we'll talk about a couple of the different aspects of this process that we find to be most impactful in terms of agency success. The first and possibly the most important being self-service, especially automated self-service, giving caregivers the ability to see themselves through an onboarding process as quickly and efficiently as possible. And we think about this in a couple of different ways. The first being that we want caregivers to be able to go through an onboarding process that's uninterrupted, meaning that they can complete everything in just 1 to 2 steps, providing their credentials, their information, signing their documents, completing continuing education, whatever it might be for your state, payers, or just preferences, ensuring that caregivers don't need to start and stop. Thinking about this from a caregiver's perspective, they're very likely weighing your opportunity, the opportunity to work at your agency, against a number of other opportunities that they're qualified for. And so the job here is just to make sure that there's as little friction as possible for them to join your agency so it looks attractive relative to the other things that they're considering. When this process is straightforward, simple, communicated clearly to the caregiver, this makes them more likely to choose you. It makes it easier for them to come on board. It makes them easier for them to work for you. And so it's really important to provide that kind of experience for caregivers, just giving them a single, uninterrupted, sort of linear path to completing everything that they need in very few steps. Another really important aspect of self-service is giving caregivers the proactive notifications, reminders, and engagement that supports them through the process. So this means that caregivers receive regular reminders, regular engagement, so that even though they're able to self-serve in one continuous path, should they get stopped or interrupted, because caregivers have a lot going on. They're even if they're able to self-serve all the way through, likely something's going to come up during their day. They're going to have to put it down and come back to it. That they're reminded that they were in the middle of this process, that they still have things to do, and that they have support in case they need questions answered, or that things come up. They don't have something, they're not sure what to provide. They know who to reach out to. Again, thinking intuitively. This is exactly what any of us would want, going and onboarding with a new company. These are things that Homecare Pro provides, but we find them to be really important in ensuring that caregivers get on board quickly. When these are present, we find that caregivers are able to onboard themselves in under 2 days and complete these steps very quickly, whereas the industry average is almost a week. So really, really important to have these things in place. On the other side of the equation is caregiver onboarding in the context of manager effort. So we've got caregivers self-serving, but let's think about all of the time that managers are going to be spending on the tasks related to onboarding caregivers. onboarding very much does not happen in a vacuum. Of course, you're fulfilling state requirements, payer requirements, but there's also an element of just getting the caregiver operationally ready. And so you're going to need the data that you collect and the information that you collect during onboarding to feed into the registries and background checks that you run, the profiles that you create in the EMR, scheduling platforms, payroll as well. And then, of course, that the documents that you collect are digitized, named, organized for the case of an audit or even just internal purposes. When none of this work is automated, we see that managers can spend up to 3 hours per caregiver running these checks automatically, following up to see when they're done, creating profiles in various systems, and especially collecting documents, digitizing them, naming them, and organizing them in the various systems where they might need to be. Again, so when this work is automated on managers' behalf, we see that managers end up spending less than 30 minutes per applicant. In fact, it's closer to 15 to 20, whereas without it can be as much as 3 hours. So really important to think about onboarding from both sides of the caregiver's perspective, ensuring that it's as low friction as them and make it easy as possible for them to stay engaged and choose your agency over their other options, as well as from the manager's perspective, thinking about it in terms of the manual work that's required and ensuring that as much of that manual work as possible is automated so that managers can spend time recruiting, hiring, on care management, or just the various things that software is not well equipped to do or perform on their behalf. They really need to be making decisions and letting us just handle this manual work in the background. The final piece, and this kind of goes into a different part of operations, is really around HR compliance. And I'm going to say this data point here, this benchmark that we have, and just say as well that there are a number of caveats to this. And I would use this kind of as a benchmark, as a North Star, but not necessarily at all as a sort of hard and fast rule, which is that, once you have caregivers on board, onboarding is really just the beginning of an ongoing HR compliance exercise where all of the documentation that's been collected during onboarding now needs to be maintained. When we think about that in terms of efficiency for managers, we see agencies should target roughly 1 manager to 250 active caregivers in terms of a ratio. This is very possible when the tasks that managers perform during onboarding are, again, automated. So registries and background checks renew if they need to. Reminders go out to caregivers who are able to self-serve. Documents that are collected for HR compliance are digitized, named, and organized automatically, which means that managers are handling only the exceptions. It is possible for 1 manager to handle 250 active caregivers in terms of HR compliance. However, there are states such as Washington, California, Kansas is tough, a couple others, that this is probably not possible, where there are a number of exceptions that need to be taken into account. There are more decisions that need to be made versus some less regulated states. Massachusetts is the one that comes to mind first, where it's actually, I think, quite reasonable for 1 manager to target even more active caregivers. So again, just as kind of a rule of thumb, and if anybody does have questions about their particular state and what might be reasonable, happy to answer those based on our experience and what we're seeing. But yeah, just as something to think about, how many managers are working on maintaining active caregiver compliance, because when automation around these things is missing, can really start to balloon, both in terms of headcount as well as cost. Yeah. Turn it back over to you, Jen.
Awesome. That was, I think, really interesting. So hopefully everybody else felt that same way. But feel free to raise your hand if you have questions. I'm just throwing it out there. I wanted to now just touch, be a little bit more specific about why why specialization matters as much as it does. Because I think that's probably what you're seeing in the type of data and benchmarks that we're sharing, is that it's all very specific. We're talking, I'm down to the level of how close your caregivers need to be to your office for you to have the best chance of hiring them. That's a really specific thing to be measuring, you know? And I think what it comes down to for Augusta is that matching is different than hiring. It's a nuance. It's like we're headed in the same direction, but it's so specific, right? Other hiring platforms out there aren't going to like come to the type of interview off of that based on the quality of that candidate for your business. That's just not something that other platforms would do, and it's because we're totally specialized. So what we're doing, and I'll go through my bullet points here to be more structured. Automation of manual tasks to deal with the reality of home care. That's what specialization gets you. The way we're doing that really specifically is in Augusta's platform, caregiver applicants are treated as your most precious resource. I have to tell you, there's a ton of platforms out there today for hiring, and almost all of them are going to put all of your applicants through a minimum 4-step, probably 7-step process to get to the point of even talking to a recruiter. I mean, you may not see it that way, but like I have a lot of screenshots that I can share of a whole bunch of things I've seen out there. And the reality is caregivers today, they're applying to 10 or 15 jobs because when they need a job, they need a job now. Like, let's be really empathetic here about this. Like, they're a financially sensitive group of people, and they are your product. It's like we need to treat them so important, gingerly and importantly, and making those human connections with them, and all of that type of stuff. But to do that in a way that's really specific to caregivers takes a lot of specialization. For example, we know applicants don't usually read the job description. So having a way for them to see a map of exactly where they'll be working and then be spoon-fed the right information about how they're a great match with you because of where your clients are, for example. That's something that really matters to a caregiver. Is it going to be an easy commute, or in long term, there's not going to be a match there if they have to drive 40 miles to a client, right? So all of those things like actually help a caregiver feel like they're a precious resource. Please, if there's anybody out there who has a system today where a caregiver has to log in to be able to schedule an interview or do more screening questions or anything like that, it's a barrier that you're throwing up rather than wanting to just talk with the best applicant first. So that's just a note out there. So treat your applicant, our part of what our software does is it automatically treats your applicants as they are the most precious resource on your team. Automated pre-screening with compliant home care specific data is one of those things that, again, super specialized. Other platforms wouldn't do that for many reasons. I also want to throw a little emphasis on compliance screening questions because what we've seen is that there's most systems out there allow you to create your own questions, and while that may seem really great and there's totally use cases where that makes sense, a lot of times it actually does lead people down a path where they have to figure out all their own like legalities and compliance aspect to the questions that they ask applicants, and that can be an issue sometimes. Automatically assigning the right type of interview based on applicant quality. That is a super specialized thing to do. And again, it's related to things like the location of the applicant and the quality of them for home care specifically. So let me take Washington State as an example, because that's where Connor is based. So in Washington State, there's the Home Care Aid certification, and you have to have that to be able to be a caregiver in the long run. Being able to automate the type of interview that you give somebody based on whether or not their certification is in progress or whether it's completed. Like, do you want to spend more time with the person who's got a completed certification that they're ready to work right now and you can bring them on tomorrow, or the person who's still working on their certification? Do you want to spend less time with them and automatically have a shorter interview that's a lower bandwidth exercise. So that level of granularity, that's just like where specialization wins. And then last but not least, engaging the entire team in applicant client matching. So I kind of alluded to this when I'm talking about how our software geo-qualifies applicants. It's to help make the match in the long run. And that's not just the match of the applicant to your agency, it's the match of the candidate to your client. And for that to happen, that whole string of events to work out well time and time again, it does mean that your care coordinators need to be really aligned with what's in the recruiting funnel. That's another part of specialization, where a lot of times a recruiting platform is totally separate from a team's process of acquiring business. But with Augusta, we specifically encourage our customers to have their care coordinators in the Augusta platform with their recruiters, because that's where the best connections are made of, like, oh, this is the person that we can actually match with that new business that we just got, and move that matching process way up the hiring funnel. So that's my last point on why specialization matters so much, and how Augusta does it. I mean, certainly there may be other ways that you could achieve that, but obviously this is what Augusta is making really easy for our customers.
Thanks, Jen. And then on the Homecare Pro side, thinking about compliance, HR compliance specifically in home care is a really unique challenge in a number of different ways. The first one being that I can't think of another industry where you have such a large ratio of employees, caregivers, who are going to be managed by such a very small team. Home care agencies, they run really lean. They need to in order to be successful. But the compliance requirements for the large number of employees that they're managing and overseeing HR compliance for are relatively rigorous. Despite the fact that home care in many cases sometimes is not considered to be quote unquote healthcare, it's very much regulated as such. And so the HR compliance requirements are equivalent to what you would find in other areas of healthcare in terms of the rigor that's imposed. But you have a very lean team overseeing the HR compliance for that group. And so when you have that kind of dynamic, automation, self-service, keeping everything in a single platform as simple as possible, ensuring that managers do not have to do very much per person that they're overseeing is really, really, really critical. It's just absolutely necessary for organizations to scale effectively and efficiently. The second piece that's very unique in home care HR compliance is the integrations with third parties. HR compliance in home care is very unique also in the sense that, where else are you going to have to be running I'll give an example from Texas, like the Texas employability status check, as well as doing continuing education in a third-party continuing education platform, as well as collecting a number of specific credentials and documents, potentially checking Texas nurse aid registry, depending on the role that you're hiring, signing a whole bunch of forms, potentially doing a competency test if that's something that your agency likes to do during onboarding, running OIG and SAM, the exclusion lists. And so, and of course, creating profiles in your scheduling platform and your payroll platform. It's just a whole bunch of different third parties that are coming together and, talking about the importance of keeping everything in a single system and giving caregivers the ability to self-serve in very few steps, making sure that they don't have to start and stop. Keeping all of those things in a single platform and integrating with those third parties is absolutely critical. And so that's something as well that we found that's really unique and really specialized onboarding and HR compliance and home care is that, this is really, integrations are absolutely critical. We do none of this on our own. We are integrating with all of those different tools in order to provide the experience that caregivers need to get on board with you instead of competitors or other parties that they're trying to onboard and be successful there. The final thing, then, this is was something kind of our very unique little secret sauce for us is that onboarding feeds directly into HR compliance. All of the documents, documentation, the things that are being completed during onboarding, it's just the very beginning. And so keeping the onboarding and HR compliance aspects in a closed loop in a single system ensures that managers don't have to spend time entering expiration dates into third-party systems, opening up the potential for error, and then just also creating a huge amount of work and running the reports, following up manually, but ensuring that these documents were collected for this caregiver during onboarding. They're required for their compliance. This caregiver is now active. We now know that they need to be kept up to date. It makes it very easy, keeps it in one seamless closed loop, if that makes sense. So again, specialization, I don't think that a platform like this would really apply at all to any other industry, not one that I can think of, because of the reasons that home care is just really unique. These things make Homecare Pro uniquely suited for home care and really nothing else. I mean, it's in our name. Yeah.
Cool. Yes, I just in sum, I think we both do, both of our companies do some pretty incredible stuff that other companies just would not do. So and it's because of all these really important and specific needs that home care agencies have. So okay, so let's we wanted to talk a little bit about our partnership and the integration between our companies. So speaking of integrations, Augusta and Homecare Pro have partnered to basically make it really easy and reduce friction between recruiting and onboarding. So we're reducing manual steps, making it faster, cleaner data, smoother experience for caregivers, basically. I mean, like I said, we need to treat caregivers as the most precious resource. So having a seamless experience for them is super important. And the two of our companies together have done, I think, a really great job of making that happen. So basically the way it works, and feel free to jump in, Connor, with any more details that you want to add. But essentially, Augusta is at the top of the funnel. We're helping to attract, screen, and schedule interviews with your best applicants. And then as soon as you're ready to make that offer to an applicant, you basically, all of the information that you collected on the applicant, it can then be automatically sent to Homecare Pro. And from the applicant's perspective, they just get a text that you're ready to onboard them and complete their onboarding paperwork. And then they'll go through Homecare Pro and complete their documents and be ready for that ongoing HR compliance. Anything else to add on that?
No, I think that's about it. Yeah. I mean, we just want to make it seamless so that, managers can focus on building relationships and hiring caregivers. The manual work happens in the background without them needing to think about it. Of course, we do escalate when managers need to pay attention, when there are exceptions, but the default should fall on us for improving HR compliance.
Yeah. Cool. So then a quick example of a mutual customer between Augusta and Homecare Pro, who both had tremendous outcomes, basically. So it's a company called Private Home Care, and they're in the Midwest, and they're a great top employer, growing organization, rapidly growing organization. Started working with us in the summer last year, I think, give or take, and had tried a number of different hiring platforms out there. Weren't able to find an applicant tracking system of any kind that really worked for them. So they were, even though they had tried a bunch of stuff, they were still in spreadsheets. The primary outcome of their use through Augusta, and by the way, they've got well over 500 employees, just to give you a sense of the scale of this team. Basically, their primary outcomes with Augusta is that their recruiters saved so much time on sourcing and screening and identifying applicants that they were able to finally focus on the full cycle recruiting. Essentially, they had a team that was just focused on screening, And then those same people, all of a sudden, were able to do the entire recruiting cycle just by putting Augusta in place. The second and biggest, second outcome was that the quality of their candidate pool improved significantly. That's the little testimonial that you see on the right from Katie, one of their directors. She said that the biggest improvement is the quality of the applicants. Augusta has actually allowed us to focus on the people who are qualified instead of wasting their time on the low quality applicants. And then from a data perspective, they shared that their show up rate to the first interview went from about 50% to around 70%. And that's pretty meaningful improvement. Obviously, would allow you to hire a lot more people if you get more people showing up to interviews. So yeah, that was our experience with private home care. So.
On the compliance side, it was actually quite interesting. So private home care, as Jen said, over 500 caregivers spread across 3 states in the Midwest. One of those states being Kansas, which is a particularly challenging state in terms of compliance. So we were initially called in to help them bring their Kansas team's compliance up to speed, which when we got in, one of the first things that we do, or the first thing actually that we do when we're working with a new agency is audit their existing compliance. So identify, it's, really the critical first step of automation is collecting the data. And so we collected the data, performed the audit, within a week, turned around and they were pretty aware that they were in a rough spot, but their compliance was between 30 and 40% in terms of the percent of caregivers that were active that had everything up to date, which is actually, we find that all the time. And within 3 months, we were able to turn that around and give them a 90% compliance for their Kansas office. The flow that since then, they rolled us out to the other states that they operate in, which are less regulated, but still important to have automation in. The process that we have today is approved Augusta applicants begin onboarding in Homecare Pro. They self-serve without manager intervention through the different onboarding steps. They use WellSky. We create them in WellSky. We upload the files into WellSky. Depending on the different states' requirements, we're collecting different things from caregivers based on the role. That's part of the config that we have. Reminders and proactive support from Homecare Pro keep caregivers engaged as they're onboarding. We're making sure that they're successful. Managers, in the meantime, view status in the dashboard. And then once active in WellSky, Homecare Pro is ensuring that those active caregivers' compliance requirements, the stuff that we collected during onboarding, is staying up to date on their behalf. We let the managers know if not, but otherwise the default is on us to make sure that they remain compliant. I talked about the importance of thinking about how many active caregivers does a manager focused on HR compliance, what does that ratio look like? And the quote from Evan, who was really brought us on board with them, is a remarkable leader. Even in our satellite offices, they have a full-time person doing this work, and now it's, I think, just one person actually across their entire team that's focused full-time on this. Really critical, not just for cost control and scaling, but also just headache and management and visibility and transparency across the organization. So yeah, really great client to work with that we've really enjoyed together.
Awesome. Any questions? Oh, we got somebody with a hand raised.
I'm Blaine, you can participate, I believe. Do you want to unmute yourself? Hopefully. Maybe.
Looks like we can't unmute you, Blaine, unfortunately. So the mute button, it should be at like the bottom of your Google Meet
What I'll do,
icons.
actually, I'm gonna uncheck. I'm gonna let everybody send messages in the chat.
Okay.
So give me one moment.
Oh, it says,
I'm sorry, Blaine. Actually, just drop your question there if you wouldn't mind.
and I see that Farad and Nicholas also have questions. So if you wouldn't mind chatting in, that would be great.
Can everybody see where the chat is? It's in the bottom right. It's that little message button of the screen here. Yeah, Blaine. So I see your question here. So yeah, Homecare Pro annual packets. Yes, that is automated. So we think about when we think about renewals, renewals can be defined in a couple of different ways based on what's being renewed. So a document like auto insurance, common thing to collect, that is going to renew based on the document's expiration date. Like a 3 or 6 month policy or an annual policy. And so when that document is provided during onboarding or as it's being renewed, an expiration date is assigned to that document, which then governs when it needs to be renewed in order for said caregiver to remain compliant. But for an annual packet, which of course it's periodic, the renewal is set so that there is no way to assign an expiration date because we know it renews on an annual basis. And so once it's complete, the next task is going to be assigned to do in a year. The same thing can be done, and this is very common for registries. I mean, many register states, some states require that, the exclusion lists, OIG and SAM are renewed monthly. And so, we can do monthly, even weekly, periodic, quarterly, just any denomination that you need of renewal. And that's configured based on the type of document or the type of task that we're renewing, if that makes sense. Feel free to follow up there, or if anybody has any other questions, please drop them in the chat.
Yeah, I hopefully you guys see where the chat is, bottom of the Google Meet bar, bottom right-hand corner. It's a little bubble icon, I guess. Hopefully it has like a little indicator on it that people are talking in there.
It auto assigns. Yeah, so we think about compliance requirements in terms of roles. So when a caregiver is hired through Augusta, they're automatically assigned to a role in Homecare Pro. That role is unique to your agency. It's defined by your agency. And in order for you're totally fine. In order for a caregiver to be compliant, they will need to fulfill the requirements that are assigned to that role. So all caregivers that are assigned to that role have the same requirements. What that means is that basically the caregivers assigned to the role, we are then tracking them against those compliance requirements. And so no, those tasks do not need to be assigned manually. They're auto-assigned at onboarding, so long as that caregiver remains assigned to that role. That those tasks will continue to be tracked and continue to be auto-assigned, including renewals, like your question around automated annual packets. A caregiver assigned to a role that has an automated or that has an annual packet will receive annual packets annually, periodically, like we discussed. If anybody is having trouble accessing the chat, do feel free to email either of us. You can find those as well in the invite. I have my email open here just in case those come in.
Okay. Actually, do you want to throw our contact information up on the screen?
Yeah, great idea, actually.
It's on the next. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Because yeah, I see that Karen and Nicholas have their hand raised, but yeah, if you see that, if you're able to access the chat in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, that would be awesome. Then we can see your question. I'm sorry, the unmute thing isn't working.
Or send us an email.
Yes, or send us an email.
We'll keep an eye on that too. Let's see, I do see another question. Yeah, Blaine. So sign a digital document company, so upload everything. We switch over to Care Pro. We have to redo it all. So we actually take on the process of completing your templates or populating your templates for you. So it would need to be redone. Well, actually, we can actually upload, if it's DocuSign, we can upload document or templates from DocuSign, but regardless, we would handle it for you. It's part of what we do during onboarding, just to make it easy.
Yeah, it sounds like they got that as well.
So I did see, Connor, I don't know if you want to try this or not, but I did see that it looks like there is a button on the screen that I'm seeing as a host where I can unmute everyone.
Go for it.
Yeah.
If anybody, give it a shot.
Hopefully not total chaos. Oh, it won't let me click on it.
Okay, maybe not.
Sorry.
Send us emails, drop in chat, questions. No, great question, actually. So, no, we handle, as part of onboarding, we talked about the first step being data collection, basically understanding what we're starting with in terms of HR compliance. As long as you are tracking, we don't need files, but we do need expiration dates. We need to know, this caregiver, this document expires on this day. If that information is in WellSky or Access Care, your scheduling platform, EMR, we're able to retrieve that automatically, which is, again, really easy for us to do. If you have that in an Excel sheet, we can also use that. It'll take a couple days longer, but you would not need to provide us with files. We just need expiration dates because we need to know what to renew or which caregiver on what date. Just got a just got an email. Three-part question. What are the costs of the platforms? For us, it depends on the size of the agency. If you're interested in understanding the cost for your agency specifically, reach out. It depends on the number of active caregivers. It's commensurate to the amount of work that we're doing on your behalf. How do you work in collaboration with WellSky? Our integration does a couple of things with WellSky. We create applicants during onboarding. So caregivers who are onboarding with Homecare Pro see applicant profiles in WellSky created automatically. We upload caregiver files into their WellSky caregiver profile, if that makes sense. So the files section in each caregiver's profile in WellSky, we upload the files that we collect there. That's optional. We don't always do that. Some agencies don't want us to do that for privacy concerns within their team. And then, but it's an option. And then the third aspect is that when we think about HR compliance, we are maintaining the active caregivers for HR compliance. And we think about an active caregiver as one who is active in WellSky. So in order for a caregiver to be maintained for caregiver for compliance in Homecare Pro, they need to be active in WellSky. And we talked about roles previously. They need to also be assigned to a role in Homecare Pro, which tells us they're active, we should maintain them for compliance, and the role governs what it is that we are maintaining them for compliance. What does the HR compliance entail? Does this act as an HRIS system? Different people have different definitions of an HRIS system, so you have to be more specific in what you mean by that. And can we upload our own policies and procedures and other company-related documents when it comes to new hire paperwork and things like that? Yes, all templates come from you. So bring your own templates, use your own. Yeah, it's all your own PDFs. That makes sense.
So with the second questions, there were specific to onboarding and compliance, right? And so it was what is the cost?
Yeah.
WellSky, and then
HR compliance entail.
Okay, got it. Yeah, so our cost, similarly, it depends on the size of your team. So happy to talk with you about it directly. Then basically the volume of caregivers that you have active on your team is what mostly makes our influences our cost. Though I suppose there's also the aspect of like how many recruiters you have on the team as well that could influence the cost too. So happy to talk about it with you. In terms of WellSky, when we are integrated with Homecare Pro, I would recommend using the integration that Connor has with WellSky. There may be some use cases, though, where it's actually helpful for our customers to use the integration that Augusta has with WellSky too. Because I think we do have at least one customer who does it that way, where we add the applicants to WellSky and then you grab them for compliance, I'm pretty sure on your end, Connor. Right. So like both of us have different integrations with WellSky, and they're depending on what your needs are. Essentially, there may be reasons why we can use either one or both, or yeah. So yeah, and then onboarding compliance, that's you guys. So.
Perfect.
Was there another? I thought I just saw a notification. Oh. Blaine has another question in the chat. Oh, and I got a question from Nicholas as well, who had tried to raise his hand earlier.
Go for it, Jen.
This is the same. Sorry, I just got the same email that you.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, gotcha. Sorry. Didn't realize it's the same person. Thank you, Nicholas. Hopefully, we answered your question for now.
Okay, thanks everyone. We are at time. Please do reach out if there's anything more that we can share with anybody. Always happy to get on and frankly just chat about the work that we do. We do this day in and day out. Personally, it's very much a passion of mine to solve this problem for home care agency because I see how much in the way the manual HR admin work can get in between teams that want to provide really good care and actually providing really good care to clients. And so, more than anything else, I want to help people solve this problem. So do reach out if you have any more questions, not about Homecare Pro, but just in terms of what your team is seeing and struggling with. And I'm happy to share the experiences that we see with our clients and sort of what you might want to try or different perspectives or different ways to try things or do things that might help you with your specific challenges. But it's been really wonderful. Again, we don't get an opportunity to take a step back and talk about the impacts and the benchmarks that we see on an aggregate or higher level. That we do quite a bit of work together, and so it's really fun to get in front of a crowd like this and share. So, yeah, please do get in touch. You have our contact information here. Please save it. You are welcome to use my email to schedule a call. I'm sure Jen feels the same way. But it's been really wonderful to be here with all of you this morning, and I hope you're having a great week. And yeah, I would love to hear from any and all of you if you have any more questions or if there's anything more we can do to help.
Agreed. Yes, thank you, everybody. It was great to see you folks. And I totally concur. Happy to just talk about your recruiting process and can tell you what we would recommend, regardless of whether or not that's using Augusta. Honestly, that's how I approach everybody that I work with in the industry. So, so yeah, happy to share our experiences, and for some of you, maybe it's a good fit. So yeah. Great. Thank you, everybody. And I'll look forward to hopefully hearing from you soon.
Take care. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.